Welcome to another episode of From Garage Growth, and this is the podcast where we explore the transformative power of entrepreneurship and innovation and look at the movers and shakers within the space. And I'm your host, O'Brien, and on today's episode, we'll be looking specifically at the challenges and triumphs of that are faced by immigrations within the entrepreneurship space. And joining me today is Djordje, a project coordinator at Neustart.plus, an initiative that empowers refugees to become self-employed within the German entrepreneurship space. So to get things started, I'd just like to give you the floor so you can introduce yourself. Just tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got involved within the project itself.
Like you said, my name is Djordje Cetojevic. I'm a project manager for Neustart.plus. I have been working in the field of politics for a long time after I concluded my studies. And I think I always wanted to do something where I could have an impact on society. And when I saw this program, it sort of resonated with me because I have, from my biography, that my father is an immigrant. He immigrated to Germany from Serbia, and he's also an entrepreneur. And so I sort of firsthand saw that it can be possible for immigrants to be entrepreneurs and be successful entrepreneurs. At the same time, I saw, there's a lot of hardship connected to that. And this sort of like wanting to create an impact and at the same time work in a job where I can draw from my personal experiences as well, sort of came together in working as a project manager for Neustart.plus.
Okay, so you mentioned that your father was a refugee as well. Can you provide us an overview of the Neustart.plus project and its primary objectives in terms of promoting refugee entrepreneurs?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the project has the primary objective to basically get a person, a refugee or a non-EU citizen, even though 90% of the people who come to us are in fact refugees, to basically get them from formulating their idea to actually founding the business. So to register the business and to find a spot where they can open it. And we do that through providing consultations on an individual basis, as well as workshops, networking events. And of course, we're also involved in lobbying efforts to represent their interests and to push forward some meaningful change.
So one of the major things with regards to being part of applying for this, can you kind of walk us through the typical journey of participants within the project in terms of from the initial consultation stages to actually launching their startup, and how would someone go about applying for the project if they're interested in it?
Yeah. So a lot of the times people are referred to us by other organizations who do not have the means to consult refugees or immigrants in general on entrepreneurship. So we often get people from Job Center, or we get people from, other consultancy agencies who typically cater their programs to a German crowd. And they usually contact us through our website. They take the contact form that is on our website. If anybody wants to apply, they can go through that. And then usually we decide in the team, who's going to conduct the initial consultation. And in the initial consultation, we basically look at all the competences, all the experience a person has. Have they been an entrepreneur in the country that they fled from or that they immigrated from? What kind of professional experience do they have? Even what is their level of German? What is their social background? How many children do they have? Are they involved in care work and so on and so forth? And if we think that as well as professionally as personally, it is a good fit and we believe that this person can be an entrepreneur, we really look at that very strictly. So it's not an open project. We really look at if this person is even eligible to be an entrepreneur in Germany, if it's safe for them to do that. We then put them in an assessment workshop where they have the chance to learn the basics of being an entrepreneur in Germany. And then they have the option to present their business idea. And if they successfully present their business idea and we believe it's feasible, then we allow them to continue on to 2 or 3 more workshops and 20 hours of individual coaching with a business expert. And after these 20 hours are concluded, they have further access to networking events and to some minor consultancy services that we provide, such as applying for microloans and so on and so forth. And that basically concludes the offer that we make.
And on that basis, you spoke about looking at if this person is actually eligible to be an entrepreneur, if they have the actual experience. How do you go about tailoring your support and resources to provide those specific needs, especially since you're dealing with people from so many different backgrounds? How do you go about doing that?
Yeah. So, basically, I mean, I have to say honestly that we are trying to do that. So, for example, our program does offer workshops and individual coaching to people who speak Arabic as well as to people who speak Ukrainian or Russian. But that's just because the majority of refugees in Berlin are either coming from countries where Arabic is the public or like spoken language. And now with the situation in Ukraine, obviously there's a lot of people coming from Ukraine to Germany or to Berlin as well. So that's the reason why we have both of these. That's why we can cater to both of these groups because they're quite large. But for example, our program is not very well suited for people who, for example, come from Morocco, where the dominant language is French. And I know a lot of Moroccan people, they speak Arabic, but they're more comfortable speaking in French. That's like a primary language that they do business in and that they learn and teach in. So when we get people from those countries where Arabic or let's say Ukrainian is not the language that they speak, we then simply look at if this person has progressed far enough so they can skip the workshops, for example, and they can go immediately into the individual coaching, then we accept them into the program. But if their knowledge base is very low, then we sadly do not have the capacity to really help them. But what we then do is we have formed alliances with other organizations such as GoofBee, who is also a consultancy organization, an NGO for immigrants, and Frauennalia, who is doing the same but focused on women. And then we try to find another organization who might be more suited to help somebody, for example, who speaks French or Afrikaans or all the other languages that are out there.
Oh, it's nice that you outsource some of the people that cannot fully be helped by your organization to other organizations that might have those resources to help them. And on that as well, like you mentioned you do workshops to get people somewhat to figure out where they are in their journey of like being ready for to like start a startup. What are some of the topics that are addressed during these workshops?
Mm-hmm. So our workshops are called Business Basics. The second one is called Marketing, and the third one is called Taxes and Accounting. So these are basically the three main topics that we teach and talk about in the workshop. And Business Basics, it's more like the organizational forms you have in Germany. What sort of legal requirements there are to open these firms. Is it a GmbH or is it a eingetragener Kaufmann or is it an NGO? Whatever you want to do. We talk about what these options are and what the legal requirements are. And then obviously in marketing, we talk about all the options you have in marketing. Although in this workshop, we are specifically talking about marketing for people who are solo self-employed, because in our organization, in our program, most people, they start out on their own. They don't have employees because they rarely get the funding to hire employees right away. So we teach them in a marketing workshop how they can do these things on their own. And then in taxes and accounting, pretty much everything there is to know and that you should know about taxes and accounting if you want to open a company in Germany.
And are these lessons or workshops specifically catered towards learning about how the Berlin ecosystem or the German ecosystem runs in terms of policy-wise, accounting-wise, and how they should, if they want to file the taxes and stuff like that? Is it around?
Yeah, exactly. It's very, very detailed and it's very, very much oriented to being able to function in this German context. So obviously, if you talk about taxes, we talk about how the tax system works in Germany and what maybe not loopholes, but what ways you can find to reduce your tax burden, for example, because that's the question a lot of entrepreneurs have. How can they reduce their tax burden? And exactly. So this is what we teach, and it's very much focused, like even the marketing and the business basics workshop as well. It's very much focused on the situation in Berlin and in Germany as well.
So, and on that other thing, you referred to this notion of language being a major barrier of entry. So does the project itself require you to speak a level of German, or can you enter and then still be part of the project if your level is not really to the point where you can communicate?
Yeah. So because we are funded by the Senate of Berlin, we are basically required to set a entry level or proficiency of German at a level of B2 if you want to enter the program. I personally do not believe in this approach. I do not think it's feasible because of, like you said in your introduction, or like you said when we talked earlier, refugees, they didn't choose to come to Germany. It's not their lifelong dream to have come to Germany. So they never really thought about this country, thought about the language. So it's a little bit harder for them to learn this language. And at the same time, we have German society saying, oh, these people should integrate. They should, adjust to our culture. They should start to learn our language. When you can only learn the language and be part of society if you have something to contribute. And if somebody wants to be an entrepreneur, you have to sort of let them be an entrepreneur. And through that path, you can expect that they will eventually pick up the German language as well as, all the social and cultural habits that we have here. So that's why I don't believe in this approach. And that's why we've made some changes. So the workshops for our for our founders who speak Arabic, are mostly in Arabic, except for the taxes and accounting workshop. That one is sadly still in German. And the workshops for our Ukrainian founders are completely in Russian and Ukrainian. So there is not a German word spoken in those workshops. And I think it's the better approach.
Yeah. I think language is a factor that kind of caters to having people become accustomed to the ecosystem and feeling that they're welcomed as well. Was if you can speak and you can understand, you kind of know what you need to do. It's somewhat difficult where someone is fleeing their country. I don't think they've been like, oh, let me do German lessons at home because I know I'm going to be there. That's that's not the plan. So it's kind of difficult to expect someone that's fleeing maybe war toward the country that's going through war to be influent in the language out of the blue. So yeah, I'm glad that there's been movements that are towards making it more easier for those individuals to feel like they are part of the program. Was imagine you have an idea, but then you can't do it because the language barrier is the reason you can't do it. I think that's one of the other reasons where German, or to a degree, has maneuvered to become maybe the number one favorite place for entrepreneurs to come to, because there's still the barrier of the language. Where places like London, it's quite easy to go there because English is such a globally spoken language, so people are more comfortable just to go there and start up things. So I think that's something that German needs to work on a little bit as well. So on that notion of language being a barrier, what are some of the other common obstacles participants that are specifically refugees do you see that they're going through when they want to start businesses here in Germany?
Mm-hmm. So I think the primary barrier is the fact that they have a limited refugee status. So I don't know how familiar you are with the refugee system, for example, in the United States. In the United States, if you are accepted as a refugee, you have a unlimited residency status from the get-go. I mean, they accept less refugees, but in turn, they provide every refugee with an unlimited refugee status, an unlimited residency status, as soon as they are accepted into the country. But whereas in Germany, a refugee can only have a residency status for maximum 3 years. And so this barrier comes in a lot of things, especially, for example, in funding. So, for example, if you want to apply at a bank for a loan and you have a limited residency status for 3 years, I mean, what bank is going to give you a loan for 150,000 euros if you have a residency status for only 3 years? And the loan typically goes for 10 or 15 years. So the bank always says, no, I'm sorry, we don't know if you're going to be back in Syria or you're going to be back in Ukraine in 3 years. We can't give you the loan. That's one thing. And the other thing is that the refugees that come here, a lot of them, I think the last number I read was like 90% of them, they said they want to stay here. They want to make their life in Germany. And the German immigration law basically says that if you are a refugee and you want to stay in Germany, your best option is to pick up a job where you pay social security, where you pay taxes, but it's not catered to entrepreneurs. So basically every refugee who wants to be an entrepreneur through this limited residency status is coerced into, working a 9-to-5 manual labor job at Subway. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but if you want to be an entrepreneur, you don't want to work for Subway. You don't want to work for whatever it is, right? You don't want to work a corporate job. You want to make your own idea happen. You want to realize your own idea. And so I think this limited residency status is the major and biggest barrier that we have. And the other barrier that I see, especially in women and female refugees, is the fact that they're often alone here without their husbands or without their partner, their life partner. And so they're facing like a double or triple discrimination, as mothers who can't find places for childcare. So they have to take care of that, but they also have to make money, but they also want to be entrepreneurs, but they don't get funding. So this sort of, I guess, sexist discrimination that we still have towards mothers and women in general is also a major barrier.
Yeah, so we'll be speaking a lot about these barriers, and German to a degree, it's known for its bureaucratic hurdles that people have to go through. How does the Neustart Plus project go about maneuvering through these hurdles and maneuvering the refugees within the bureaucracy environment in Germany when they want to run their programs?
Yeah, so we are, I think, the only program in Berlin, perhaps even in Germany, where we do not only exclusively offer workshops, but we have a rather large number of coaching hours. So the 20 hours, I mean, actually, it's not that much if you think about the challenges that our target group is facing, but it's still more than any other program out there. And through these 20 hours, typically what we do in these 20 hours of individual coaching is work on a business plan. But obviously, as a person who wants to found a company and as a refugee in Germany, you form a quick attachment to the counselor. And then obviously, whatever challenge you face in a bureaucratic context, you bring back to your counselor. And obviously, we try to do our best. So whatever they come to us with, we try to find a solution for it. So this very individual approach to consultation is one way we deal with it. And then there are some barriers that no amount of consultation can change. So for example, this limited residency status and the problem that banks do not give out loans to refugees. Even with 100 hours of 100 consulting hours, you couldn't change that. So that's why we are also involved in lobbying efforts to change some of the laws and some of the practices that banks face. And we've actually made a significant progress in this context where the Bürgschaftsbank Berlin, I don't even know if they have a name in English, but they're basically constructed a program now where people with a limited residency status can have their loans insured by this bank. It's a public government bank. And so in the case that you lose your residency status and you have to go back, the loan is being paid for you. And that makes it easier for refugees to get loans. So that's how we try to improve the situation for our target or for our clients.
Oh, nice. So on that notion as well, since we're talking about financing projects, especially one of the biggest hurdles for any startup is money. And it's more difficult for refugees to get money since they are fleeing their countries, and most of them are fleeing their countries, leaving everything behind. On that notion, what programs do you guys run to kind of help fund some of these startups, some of these refugees? I know you mentioned you help them with regards to their loans. Is there other things outside of getting them help with the loans that you guys provide as well?
We definitely are. I mean, when you are a refugee in Germany with a clean and workable residency status, the chances are that you are with Job Center and you're in Job Center support. So you're not working and you're receiving government benefits. And if you are receiving government benefits, there is ways to get some funding for your entrepreneurship from the government. So, for example, you can get up to 5,000 euros as like a microloan from Job Center. And you can even get, I think, up to 25,000 euros of a interest-free loan from the government, from the Job Center agency as well. And then, of course, we also formed corporations with other organizations such as Perspektive Neustart and Generali to construct microloans that are also interest-free and that you can pay back in very small installments, which is also how we try to get people their funding. But in general, receiving a government-funded loan is like the primary way our clients receive funding for their companies.
Okay. So I want to move the conversation more to a topic that we spoke about, and that is women and the hurdles that they go through. So I was looking at your website, and it says you guys cater to around 25% of startups within the Neustart project are women-centric startups. Mm-hmm. Why do you think should startups be such an attractive job opportunity for women? And how can being in a startup or having a startup be kind of help women integrate within the Berlin ecosystem? I mean, not only in terms of financial wise, but in a social basis as well.
Yeah. I definitely think that if you are an entrepreneur and generally speaking, if you are an entrepreneur, you are contributing to society by really bringing in raw talent and raw experience and skill, right? So it's something where you basically are demanded or asked to actively shape your environment and to actively shape the market and the city and so on and so forth. And I think if the number of women went up in this area, women would become more and more present. And so it would be harder for society to ignore what women can do and disrespect what women can do if they are more presented as entrepreneurs. And I also think that, if there were more women entrepreneurs, they would also focus more of the economic power onto themselves, so there would be a lot of, they would hold a lot of economic power, and suddenly a lot of the things that are problems for them, such as finding a kindergarten spot, which is very difficult for a mother in Berlin these days, these problems would be solved faster if more women were entrepreneurs. And that's why I think it's important to sort of actively promote that.
Do you think there's been movement within the Berlin government, or in terms of creating more policies or creating spaces that these women, especially refugee women, can feel more comfortable and feel they can seek out being an entrepreneur in the past few years?
I mean, there are organizations who do that. I mentioned one before, for example, Frau Nalia. They are an organization that have projects that are funded by the Berlin government that are helping or promoting refugee women or women who are immigrants in general to be entrepreneurs. Obviously, we do that as well. But I have to say, I don't think that they're doing enough. And I think it's because there is a mindset in general that's not just about women entrepreneurs, but about immigrant entrepreneurs. It is that they sort of have to pick up the language, and and that's the mindset of the government, right? They say, well, they should just pick up the language and then they can participate in all the programs that we already have for any entrepreneur, right? And so the fact that a refugee woman needs her own space to get going, like a protected, safe space to get going, where she can talk to other refugee women who are in the same social setting and who can relate to the challenges that they face. That's not something that's on their mind, and I don't think that's something that they fully recognize and realize. And definitely more should be done in that respect. Although I must say the ideas are there. There is a ton of NGOs who have amazing ideas on how to promote refugee women in entrepreneurship, but there is just not enough funding. So,
and what do you think, apart from government funding, what can the business sector itself, like the Berlin ecosystem is being known as this vibrant ecosystem that's growing. How can they kind of use the resources of people coming into the country and make them feel as part of the ecosystem?
Yeah, I think that the best option would be to promote self-empowerment. So a lot of the times, even when private organizations hand out money, they do that to ultimately fulfill a self-serving goal. So, for example, if you have a foundation that's attached to Bosch or that's attached to Siemens, they're basically just funding projects that are ultimately serving the goals of that foundation and the goals of that business. And I think especially for minorities in general, but especially refugees, self-empowerment and self-representation. And that means you give the money and you stop being involved in how the project is organized and how it's structured and what is being talked about and what is being offered. So basically you just provide the platform, but then you let these people, you let the women and you let refugees and you let any sort of discriminated group figure it out on their own what they want to do with the money and how they can best help their peers with that money.
Yeah, remove that sense of, oh, this is just an obligation. We are doing it to tick off a thing on our brochure or list of, oh, we've done this social helping. Yeah, it makes sort of sense. Yeah, because I think that's more you helping for the sake of, oh, our shareholders want this done, so we're doing it. It's done. We can wash our hands off it. And on that, how do you see the role of entrepreneurship as being this tool for economic and social integration within people coming into like different societies and having them being part of that society? How can entrepreneurship be that tool?
I definitely think it can be an amazing tool because if you apply for a job, basically there's somebody on the other side saying, well, you have to fulfill these requirements to be able to work here and to be a productive and contributing member of society. But if you're an entrepreneur, you can do that on your own, right? There is nobody saying, well, you have to first check these boxes and then you can contribute. you can take matters into your own hand, and you can show society on your own terms what you can do and what you can contribute. And this sort of is, even in our view, and that's what we always write in our project proposals, entrepreneurship for refugees and for immigrants is the fastest way to social and cultural inclusion, because you can define your contribution on your own terms. It's not defined by the people who are already there.
So with the project itself, how do you guys measure like the success of some of the projects that you've helped cater? And do you have any stories that you can mention in regards to the startups or refugees that you have helped and that are running their own startups now currently?
Yeah. So when it comes to measuring the success, I have to say we do try to keep in contact with our clients and our startups, but it has been difficult because we do not have the funding for that. So our funding basically runs out the moment people have concluded their individual consulting. And so my job and the job of my colleagues is also not funded to sort of have this measuring the success. But my colleague, Ajib, for example, he is very much in contact with a lot of our founders who are still open, who are running their businesses, and he goes to them on a regular basis and he asks, how are things going and what do you need and so on and so forth. As in terms of success stories, I have one that is quite recent, actually. She's not a refugee, but she is a woman from Iran, and she designs her own kimonos. And these kimonos have a very socially progressive message that is like, anti-discrimination, body positivity, sex positivity, and so on and so forth. And she has a limited residency status in Germany, and we actually helped her secure a loan over 150,000 euros. And she will now be able to amp up her production and really widen her scope and basically go to the next level with her company, which makes me very, very happy because I do not only believe in this business approach, but I also believe in the message behind it, and it makes me really happy that we were able to help her.
That's definitely amazing. So with the project itself, what are some of the future goals that you hope the Neustart.plus project can envision within the future? And how do you plan to kind of expand the project and the support that it offers to refugees?
Mm-hmm. I definitely think one of the goals that we have is increasing the number of women in our project. I mean, 25% is remarkable for this context. I mean, a lot of other organizations don't even get close to 25% in this context. But I do think we can reach parity. We can reach the 50-50 sort of balance. That's one thing I want to see improve and to see realized. And the other thing I think that I want to see realized is get in more private actors, private companies and foundations to fund what we're doing, because I think it's not enough to rely on government funding, especially now when we see, if you're involved in the German political debate, the debate goes towards more austerity and, cutting budgets. And so we cannot rely for the government to keep funding our project. And so we sort of have to find a way to talk to private actors, private companies, private entrepreneurs, individuals even, to get involved in this area and to fund the projects that are there.
And another notion, how can actually like private entities and other policymakers, other organizations get involved with Neustart Pro and kind of contribute to this current growth of it?
Mm-hmm. The fastest and easiest way is to just give us money. I mean, the money that we receive, we've recently secured the 50,000 euros by Generali, by the Human Safety Net organization, and we use that money directly. It goes one-to-one to consultancy efforts. So we've increased the number of hours that we could give to our clients. So that's sort of the most direct way. But obviously, we always need space. We need space to run events. We need space to help people network. And we also need information. So because we are a publicly funded project, we are not able to pay our consultants, or the rate that we are able to pay to our consultants is not that high. And we also cannot pay that many consultants at the same time. And so we're also relying on companies who have an expertise, such as in marketing, or distribution or whatever it is, to sort of share their knowledge.
Yeah.
And through sharing this knowledge, this could also be a really, really good support for our clients.
So as we reach like the end of our conversation, I usually ask this question to all my guests in terms of what advice would you provide to like inspiring entrepreneurs, especially since we're dealing with refugees who are maybe in Berlin or anywhere in the world right now going, I would love to start a business, but I don't know where to start. What advice would you give to them?
Ask for help. I know it's very difficult if you come to Berlin as a refugee, you're being bounced off from one organization to the next, your Ausländeраmt, Jobcenter, and so on and so forth. I know it then becomes more and more difficult to ask organizations for help because you might be scared or concerned that you're just going to be bounced off again. But you have to keep pushing and you have to keep asking for help. And there are people out there who are willing to help refugees to become entrepreneurs. And there's a lot of information and help out there. If you want, reach out to us. And if we cannot help you, we almost always know where you can get the help you need.
And if people want to reach out to you, how would they go about doing that?
Well, they can find me on LinkedIn as of recently. I mean, I haven't had my LinkedIn account for a long time, but as of recently, they can find me on LinkedIn. And of course, they can go to our website, which is www.neustart.de, and they can use the contact form and they can contact me through that.
Right. So that is kind of all from us from today. And once again, thank you for being here. Thank you for your time. And I quite enjoyed our conversation.
Thank you so much for having me.